All right, folks, we should be live on Twitch. Just to start off, those of you that don't know me, here in Discord, my name is Colin. I've got Jason with me. Jason is our support extraordinaire here at TFDi. Oh, we could do the webcams here in
Yeah, we'll do
Discord. Why
some
not?
video.
That's if my webcam's gonna work today. Oh, it does. Awesome. All right, let me. I missed the opportunity to wear my TFDi red shirt now. What are you gonna do? Get my background blurred here, or maybe I'll do something fun. Wait, oh, here we go. We'll do the these background blurring things kill me. All right, now I've done the appropriately silly background here in Discord. All right, so those of you joining us here on Twitch, the way today is going to work is we are going to kind of cover. We have a whole sort of a rundown of, from our perspective, what went right, what went wrong. Talk about some of the hot questions from support and things we've seen. We're going to show off some of the fixes and tweaks and additions since the 1.1.11, whatever the one, not 11, 04, I think it was, it came out. I have a whole story about why the versions are what they are in a second. But we'll cover the changes since then. We'll cover what's new, ask a couple of questions, kind of talk about the release timeline for us, and of course, Marketplace is going to come up, and so are Xbox, and we'll talk a little bit about that and what we've done there and what's happening. So those of you joining us here in Discord, you'll have the option to come up and speak with us verbally and actually be part of the discussion. If you're joining us on Twitch, you will hear them, but you will not be able to talk with us verbally via Twitch, of course. But we are taking your questions here in chat. We've got our comm mods as well helping us out. And all right, I think that about covers my speech. Jason and Luke, if you guys want to say hello and introduce yourselves, of course.
Oh, Jason, you go first.
Oh, thanks, Luke. Hey, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Thanks for making the time to chat and listen today. We're excited to share what we've been working on. I recent joined to the team and looking forward to answering any questions you might have and helping out with support tickets if you need anything.
Yep. I'm Luke. I assume most of you have seen me at some point or come across me at least. I'm just going to be here today helping take some questions and putting them through to the guys.
Perfect. All right. So, I do want to lead. Oh man, yeah. So just in case if you're watching, if you see me get this little GPU warning pop up, I am live streaming, recording, and screen sharing in Discord and in 2024 at the same time. So please don't take any of those warnings as, oh my god, they ruined the performance. The VRAM's terrible. It's not that. I'm pushing pretty much to the limit of what I can do with a decent FPS here. But I'll say, like I always do, frame gen for the win. I know I'll get hate for that, but I'm a DLSS frame gen guy. Give me all my frames. Anyway, I want to kind of set the tone of the things we're going to show off today. This is going to be more technical and specific by nature. We firmly believe that the initial release on the 12th was very strong, and the overwhelming majority of flights have been good. Most people have had no issues at all. We are going to focus on that smaller subset that did have some things to improve and what we've done since then. So it won't be anything dramatic. You're not going to go, wow, oh my god, at a lot of these things. There'll be welcome changes, but I just want to make sure I set the tone so it's not nobody's waiting with bated breath for a mic drop. Today is more technical by nature. So, Jason, do you want to kind of lead off how we're going to get involved with the QA here?
Yeah, so it's just sort of some general housekeeping. So I just want to make sure that everyone kind of has an opportunity to speak. Some of you have submitted tickets in the past. There may be a situation where we would like you to create a ticket for this issue so that we can properly track it and make sure that we get you the support that you need. That the chat or Colin showing you on stream just might not be the best avenue for that, and we don't want your issue to get lost in the shuffle of everything going on here. And most importantly, I did want to pause for a quick shout out to all of you that are helping in Discord, both in the general chat, the MD-11 discussions, the CE discussions. There's not a fleet of us that do support tickets. There's only a few of us, and the crowdsourced community support has been hopefully very helpful to those of you that have been having some challenges, but also very much appreciated for those of us that are trying to get to tickets, for everything that you've done to make sure that everyone is enjoying the product and getting the best out of it and not grounded for whatever the reason due to a technical issue or a sim issue. So thank you to everyone for helping. And again, if you have questions, don't feel bashful to submit them, but we may potentially defer you to an official support ticket based on the nature of your inquiry.
Yes, and I kind of want to touch on, I'll say, like I've said before, the feedback and support we've gotten from the community, not just as moderators, but even the reports themselves. You know, we're 6 years into this project, and I'm still learning new things about the plane. Recently, courtesy of reports from pilots and simmers here in our Discord. So that's been a huge source of the improvements we've made over the last couple of weeks. And like I said, we're going to see some of those today, and that's largely in part to those reports we're getting from the community. So I just want to say thank you to everybody that has contributed via that information as well. And they're good reports, too. A lot of them, you know, we had one today, a little minor one with the PFD. I guess the track mode isn't supposed to show on the PFD. We're getting reports with reference to either FCOMs and documents. There's been detailed discussions about, you know, small systems behaviors where there's reference, and, you know, even pilots sometimes will weigh in, and it's been great to get to see that and have that experience here. So cool. All right.
Colin, can you head in to the cockpit? Sounds like some windmilling is ticking away.
Oh yeah, I was trying to get the levels right there. Admittedly, I am not as familiar with this live streaming thing, so I've got all the controls. I'm not apparently using them for the volume the way I should be just yet.
That's perfect.
Okay, perfect. All right, so I actually kind of have the change log. So the collector's edition has had some of these changes, but believe it or not, one of the most common things we immediately got was something about the emergency power test. So we're going to connect the GPU and we're going to demo that. So that's something that, like everything else, it was a bigger fix than we expected it to be, because we didn't just add a, you know, if start then do test. It actually drains the battery and does the whole thing. So we'll show off that little nitty-gritty behavior here. So if we start normally, I'll wait till the displays come on here. Oh, they're on. Good. All right. They are quick. So, when we do the emergency power test, normally, you'll see it go to on now, and on the elec page, where's my elec? You can see that the battery is under load here. So, it will do this test for somewhere between 15 to 30 seconds. It will vary. But at some point, you'll see the battery go back to being disconnected, or off load, rather. And you shouldn't see any of the failure warnings here. There we go. So the bat charging. Now, that sometimes you will get a bat charging, depending on the voltage of the battery when the test started. So in this case, if we let it charge all the way to 100%, or either if the battery is discharged, or if the luck of the draw happens to give you a very long test, then it might drain just enough to trigger the bat charging alert. It won't always. This is correct per the manuals that we have. So now let's make it fail. Let's drain the battery. So we'll just put the emergency power on, let it discharge the battery for a minute while we talk in the background here. So that was one of the main things. We actually had a ticket about this and a report here in Discord. So the emergency power test is fully functional. I'm scrolling through my change logs here as well. I've got a couple of things open.
Colin, while you're doing that, what percentage of the change log would you say was a byproduct of feedback that you received?
Oh, this upcoming version, I would say 95%. Easily 95%. There's a couple of things I caught here and there, but the overwhelming majority of the things that we've added were directly related to user input. So here we go. All right, so now we have battery discharging. We know it's not charged. So we turn emergency power off. We see bat charging. I will turn it on, and it immediately failed the test because it dropped too low. So now we have emergency power test fail. The FCOM tells you don't do the test with bat charging displayed. Now, if it's I drained it further than it should have been under normal circumstances, but if it drops below a certain voltage during the test, it'll immediately fail. So in this case, I started with it too low, kicked it back. Now you need to wait till the annunciation for charging goes away, rerun the test. You should clear the alert if everything else is correct. But this sort of stuff, it's connected to the rest of the systems, much like everything else. So if something upstream is preventing the battery from charging, or if it's been discharged due to something else, this test will also fail, and so on and so forth. So while we're up here in the cockpit, another little thing. So I saw a report for this come in. The boost bar animation was actually broken. So now you come up here, it works correctly. And this is how it's supposed to have been the whole time. So that will kick you into FADEC alternate, but that little click before didn't match this. It's fixed. Again, nitty-gritty details, but there it is. Again, I'm scrolling through here, so I'm poking at a couple of things. Another big change that I can't demo as easily here is the VR collision. So we improved it a lot with 1.1 back on the 12th, but we got about 90%, maybe 80% to where it needed to be. Ozzy, over the last couple of weeks, has done another pass and improved it even further. I wouldn't say it's perfect, but it's gotten to the point that we're getting the thumbs up from users flying it in VR. I've tried it. It feels comfortable. You're not poking out in space 10,000 miles away anymore.
That's excellent. And there were a few tickets that had come in about VR, and I shared those with Colin. So again, as this update begins to get finalized and sent to production, certainly please feel free to share your feedback, your concerns, your curiosities, and just be mindful that there are some things that may not be able to be implemented, and there are other things that we may kind of, I wouldn't say push back, but ask you to kind of clarify on, hey, can I get a screenshot? Can I get a video? Is there some real world information to support what you're asking for? We always try to match expectation with reality in a simulation, and it's just important to make sure that anything that's implemented or changed matches with that simulation strategy in mind.
I'm just getting our IRS aligned here. All the I something S things. So another popular one is the weather radar we'll talk about. But yes, so and Jason kind of led into it here. So we are approaching the end of active development for the MD-11, and I want to clarify exactly what that means, because it's going to come up at some point, I'm sure, today or potentially over the next couple of days. What that means is our developers won't be starting their workday and opening the MD-11 project and looking through the bugs list every single day. It doesn't mean that we're going to abandon the project, that something that's wrong will stay wrong forever, so hold your peace. What it does, like I said, what it does mean is we're going to be moving on to other things. Now, crashes, flight killers, that sort of stuff always takes priority. We want to make sure people can enjoy the experience. So that's, those sorts of things would always jump the queue, so to speak. But the reason I say that is we are going to, especially now, some of the reports we get at this point, unless they are those showstoppers, the way we've prioritized bugs, especially toward the end of the development cycle internally, is one of two things. Either A, it needs to be a flight killer for us to look at it, which is, again, WASM crashes, which we'll talk about, system freezes, or things that are so severe you're unable to complete your flight. That's category number one. Category number two are the death by 1,000 paper cuts kind of things. So, for example, if those of you that have been here in Discord have seen this, there have been a couple of visual things on the displays over the last few months that, once they're pointed out, I can't not stare at it the entire time I'm flying. So those I fixed. And I like those. I like fixing those because a lot of times they're low effort, but they're things that really add to that polished feel. So those sorts of things, if they're either real high priority or real easy to fix, might make it in. But at this point, we're trying to get this update polished and out to everybody. But yeah, that's kind of, so when we say moving on other projects, that's what I mean. It just means it will slow down. It could, rather than an update a week, it could be an update every couple of weeks to maybe even a couple of months, depending on how stable things are. And at the rate we're going, I'm feeling confident about where we're going to be.
So, Colin, with that in mind, because I see a couple of sort of feature requests or inquiries, when people are submitting these feature requests, now that you've kind of heard what that development strategy is, just bear that in mind, that just because whereas previously you would see something implemented a week or two later in a change log. It might not be as quick or even part of the short-term roadmap.
Correct.
I don't want that to discourage you from participating, but it's important to just be mindful of that, because if we resolve your ticket or say, hey, this isn't something we're going to do at this moment, I don't want you to feel like that's being dismissive or that we don't care or value your opinion, because I know sometimes that can be perceived as such.
Yes, exactly. It's not that we don't care. It's that the formula for what we work on every day is a lot more complex than, is this wrong in the plane? Because the answer to that might be yes, but it still might have to wait. As well, so I saw a question here about timelines. So normally we don't give estimates on timelines, and I'm not going to fully break that rule, but I can tell you that the last few QA and CE builds have been met with very little resistance in terms of issues. I am expecting to, I just sent a QA build right before the stream, so the version I have now is technically the finished quote-unquote version of this. Yeah, you can't see me on Twitch, but on Discord I did the little air quotes. That's why I said it like that. But this current version that I'm showing off here on stream should be done, which means it's actually kind of a perfect chance. We had planned to talk about the release pipeline and what that means. So what we do, even for small updates, every update goes to the QA team. Sometimes it is something that'll happen, and it'll go there for 12 to 24 hours. We get a couple of flights, and it kind of get all right, it's not broken, we can continue. Then it goes to CE. CE will then normally have it for 24 to 48 hours at minimum for small updates. They've had a couple of these updates incrementally now, so they've had time to test without any major issues. After CE is past that initial window, we typically will put out a vote. We're looking for 90 to 95% approval on that vote. Once we get that, it goes to the public. So, all that to say, this update could conceivably be available as early as Tuesday or Wednesday. Now, if any of those votes fail, or we find that we have to change things, we restart that clock. Although this might seem overly procedural, this is how we make sure that what gets to everybody's computer, when they see an update and you're not on one of the special channels, you can count on it. This is the process we follow to make sure that's the case. So, very long way of saying, could be a couple of days, could be a little more, but we are very, very close to this.
And I think it's important to note that there's a variety of people that are in those groups. Some are real-world aviators, some are former MD-11 captains, some are general desktop enthusiasts, some have X type of hardware, Y type of configuration. And the hope with those different groups is that we cover the vast majority of everyone that is ultimately using the product when it ships to live.
Yes. Yes, and now actually here, so I should have another cool thing to show off that we has actually been a long-standing issue in the aircraft that we recently got fixed, is the weather radar display. So we had to trade one feature for another, and I'll go into the technical details why without going too crazy, but it has to do with the sim, shocker. But we figured out a way to not have the blocky weather radar anymore. So let me flip on our WX here and see if I get any returns here at the gate. Let me cook the ground crew here. There we go. Yep, so there we go. Now we're getting decent weather radar returns as well. When you zoom all the way out, you don't get the weird terrain radar at the edge anymore. You also don't get the polygonal cutoff, like the square shape. So some of those bugs were a byproduct of how we implemented it previously, because the drawback here is this one doesn't turn with you. Most aircraft, I think, I'm just going to explicitly say it, most except the Phoenix don't turn with you, so ours is in line with what nearly everybody does. However, the way we had it before with the turning caused all the other weirdness, the blockiness and the weird cutoff. So this is a much better system. We also fixed the gain while we were here, so this is on minimum gain. Let me crank that bad boy up to maximum here, and we should see a little more red pop up. Oh yeah, there we go. So that actually works. So overall, the weather radar experience is also much improved. While I'm up here, I'm literally scrolling through our changelog right now, picking out things that are important. We're going to pull the manual gear handle in a minute and start talking about some of that stuff. Fixed a lot of little visual issues, of course. Fixed the wiper sound. That's back. I'm just scrolling through here. So let me jump back in our QA channel. Our QA guys have had a couple of releases as well. All right, so as we move back here, let me move back from the front a little bit. My sim is frozen naturally. It'll come back. This is what I was talking about the streaming.
It's doing 30 things at once, boss.
It's doing its best. For whatever that's worth. There we go. We're back. All right. So, other little things in the cabin. We've looked around, and I'm going to... Aaron, if he's watching, is going to hate me because I'm going to get uncomfortably close to stuff. So, you see a lot of these little gaps and things have been fixed. There's been a lot of little seams here and there, especially in the cabin that we had that have been resolved. Again, and I'm doing weird stuff. I don't know why you'd be on the floor crawling around like this, but even if you do, it's bad. I mean, there's you can find one here and there if you're doing stuff you shouldn't be doing, but get out of the wall and you'll be fine. Now, as we're going through the cabin, you won't see light peeking in from the sides or above the door seams or anything like that. That's all been corrected. There's some areas back here again. If you saw some of the reports come in, you'd remember that these had them. There's some at the top of the cabin. Those are all fixed. Again, these are small. Again, that was not a seam. I was in the wall there. So one of the changes we did make, I can't remember if this is in the current public version or not, we removed the collider from the inside of the cabin. Navigating around in here was just a hassle. Even though there were no colliders in the places people were getting stuck, for whatever reason, the object that the player camera uses is kind of an incoherent shape, and it would just get wedged in between places. So we've removed that to make getting around the cabin easier. It does allow you to get a lot closer to the walls for better wing views as well. So sort of an addition through subtraction thing here. I don't know why I'm walking all the way back up here or slewing the camera. I could have done that. And I do see some questions here. So we're going to do Q&A in just a bit. I see some great questions here in the chat on both Twitch and here in Discord. So I'm just kind of going through some of my quick items, and then we'll get into some of those questions here.
Yeah, and I've been taking some notes, Colin, so if you want me to funnel a couple to you as we talk, if they're appropriate, or...
Yeah, absolutely. So they're not waiting too long.
So, Aster on Twitch asked about the maintenance and the extended simulation, which has been very well received, and I know a lot of you have been really enjoying that, and that's fantastic. Talked about, help me understand sort of the different states. We have new, fresh aircraft, fair, midlife aircraft, average maintenance, worn, end of service life. So his understanding that it refers to the condition of the aircraft, or more worn due to age? Or does it mean that the aircraft itself has been poorly maintained? For example, that when a fault is fixed, the maintenance quality is deficient. He was looking kind of for just sort of some language clarification on those states, and that's an excellent question. Thank you, Aster.
Yes, it is. So that system is sort of an immersive way of you telling us how often you'd like things to fail or how long you want to wait until something fails. So the idea is it's sort of an intersection of both. When a component is repaired by Extended Sim, it effectively resets its service life, which means it is then up to your settings, your general settings for how often it is able to fail. Now, the states of the aircraft, like I said, the answer is both. So an aircraft, we joke about this, the QA guys have joked about this. If you set it to the heavily worn state, oh man, it is made of paper mache and toothpicks. Your odds of getting through one full flight without a failure, you have a better chance of having a failure than you do of not, putting it that way. I'd be more surprised if you didn't. And that setting is there for people that really want to just have that. This thing has been sitting in the desert for 10 years. Nobody's touched it since then, and it's barely running. So to answer the question, it's more about the state of that particular airframe at that exact time. It isn't to say that maintenance won't fix it, because they will. When you have that failure and you inspect and repair via Extended Sim, they will properly repair that item that failed. They won't replace everything else. So if you set it to that really worn state, things will start to fall apart, and you can expect the plane to kind of, as each component reaches its end of its lifespan, things will begin to fall apart. Now, the new state basically sets it as if, it just rolled off the factory, nothing is wrong, and the moderate state is probably where a lot of people will end up if they want to experience a failure sometime soon, but not on the first flight. But to answer the question, it's that airframe. It is not how maintenance does it, it's when. That's what the setting controls.
Perfect. Thank you for that clarification, Astor. I hope that was helpful. If it wasn't, please let us know. On the topic of maintenance, and I've seen a couple of questions about states, Colin,
Yes.
and in particular, are there any plans to add any sort of turnaround or, hey, I accidentally left the taxi lights on last time I shut her down and it's on when I resumed?
So yes, we already have this to an extent. That particular feature, the I left it on and it's still on thing. So, and there's one thing has changed with states in this next version, which is that your current state is now saved periodically as well. This is not the answer to the question, but it jogged my memory. So every 30 minutes, your state is saved. So if your sim crashes, your WASM crashes, whatever, it's there. But the same is true if you have it set on the tablet to load last state as default. What this will do is whenever the plane ends, now this is per airframe, but whenever it unloads, it will save the state you left it in. When you come back, it'll be the same. So if you shut it down to cold and leave your taxi light on, and you come back to the last state setting, it will start up with the taxi light on still. It'll be exactly how you left it. To answer the question of will we do custom states, probably not, at least not right now. The only custom option we have at the moment is via the MCDU, like debug menu, which is kind of hidden. However, the functions exist to do this. If a third party or somebody wanted to make a utility that needed to set custom states, because I think with the FSI panels, we worked with them for the 717 back in the day. If they, for example, want to set custom states or anybody wants to do it, it is possible. We extended that in our SDK, but the current version of the in-cockpit controls don't support custom states. No, that's not something we're thinking about doing right now.
Perfect. Thank you for that. I see we're still chatting about the EFB a bit, and I anticipated that as we've gotten some tickets specifically related to VR with that. But one of the questions that I see in the chat, and thank you for that, Lucky 38, and I've seen with a couple of tickets, is are there any plans to make a viewable OFP in the EFB?
It's funny you mention this because I find myself I end up using smart cars to get my step climbs and my departure and arrival runway. So again, as of this time, something like that would be a big change to the EFB. Are we going to see that tomorrow or in the next couple of days? Absolutely not. But I would say that's one that could probably stay on the list, and I wouldn't rule that out for the future. Some enhancements to the SimBrief integration and potentially direct OFP viewing, depending on what we can do technically and without mangling the interface. Because the EFB design process is not as simple as regular websites.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Appreciate that. There was also another VR, and I know we were just discussing VR, so I'll circle back to that, and it's from the same user here.
Sure.
Can the angle of the EFB be modified? In VR, we sit quite high, and it makes for an uncomfortable viewing position of the EFB.
Huh. I suppose we could. There's nothing that stops us from doing that. Because, I mean, it's on a mount anyway. So it wouldn't be unrealistic. Let me take a look here. I guess, yeah, if you look at that isn't really quite... That's not really a comfortable angle, is it? If that's where somebody's head would be. Huh. If Ozzy's watching this, maybe he might just do that on his own. Although, you know what? The only thing about that, again, because of where we're at, that would require this wire to be modified to change the angle. And I don't know. There's a couple of ways you can model something like this. If it's skinned or whatever, I don't know if that's the right technical term, but if it's done in such a way that it simulates the droop, we can just drag it around. if it's baked in the way that it is, we'd have to remodel the wire. Seems like a silly thing, but that would delay that. So again, for the next update, probably not, but I will get that on the list to talk with Ozzy about. Because that, now that I'm looking at it, that is indeed a strange orientation.
No, it's a great call out. Thank you for that. On the topic of droop, which we've now said that word twice, so I'm going to say it a third time here. Cam from the chat on Twitch, and good afternoon, Cam. A minor request. Under most normal conditions, when the aircraft is on the ramp without hydraulic pressure, the inboard elevators droop, but the outboard ones stay neutral. Are there any plans to implement this behavior?
Oh, it's split. Okay, because I was going to say, I switched to the outside here because we do have the droop. So that's something we can definitely change. We would just need reference that backs up that it's only the inboard here.
Copy that. Cam, if you're still in the chat watching, if you could get us a real world reference point to that behavior, photo, video, some sort of documentation to support that, and hit us up on Discord or drop a ticket, whatever your preference. I'll be sure to make sure Colin gets a look at that, and we can. I see an image in the chat currently from Killian.
Yep. Further to the EFB questions, Mayhem's asked, would we ever be able to update the nav data from the EFB for convenience? And then further to that, somebody else, Lerner, has asked, what are consoles going to do for nav data updates?
Yeah, so that is something we are dealing with right now. So the unpopular answer is going to be there is no reasonable way we can make the nav data updatable currently via the EFB. And the reason for that is the format that we used is a holdover from back in the P3D days when we had basically an access database. That got converted into a one-to-one version that is now a bunch of JSON files, which is why the Navigraph Hub took so long to update it and why the installer takes so long with the nav data, because there's 90,000 files. So, not the end of the world for modern computers that have access to background threading and other things that can, accelerate these sorts of deals. But within the sim, extracting those 90,000 files is going to hang the application. On the Xbox, I'm not even sure that it would allow me to do that, even if I wanted to, because of the time that would likely take. It might consider the app hung and kill it. It's hard to test. And on PC, sort of the same deal. I don't think it would necessarily cause the sim to die, but it would be an extremely poor experience that we'd have very little way to do anything about. And actually, further to Killian's point, it might not even be possible at all to get the files, because we're talking about extracting a zip file within a gauge in the sim, which is already kind of on the edge of possible anyway. So there are unfortunately a lot of things in the way. Now, that sort of segues into a question that we got earlier about the Magenta line overhaul. So the current, again, for Tuesday, any major changes like that update I talked about coming out in the next couple of days, not going to happen. We are not rewriting the Magenta line in 2 days. I couldn't even do it in that amount of time, let alone test it and get it ready. However, we are aware that there are still some circumstances that the Magenta line won't be quite right. The overwhelming majority work well, but there are a few cases that do not. We know this. The fix to these is new navigation data, number one, and then number two, a systemic review of everything from loading the file from the disk all the way to the Magenta line on the screen. And doing that will fix the problems, but that could be weeks of development followed by weeks of testing. So, we are not done making airplanes. The vision for the company is to have, at some point, a fleet of ultra-high fidelity TFDi products that are all to that same minimum standard of quality. And I say minimum standard, not that it's low, but that we have our bar and all of our products meet or exceed that bar. And as we do that over the next months to years, we are going to improve our autopilot and Magenta line simulation, and you will see that come back to the MD-11. So it is on the long-term radar. It is not something you will see in the next couple of months, but it is on the long-term radar, as will be the self-updating nav data. We are trying to work with Navigraph to see if we can get a more current default data set, so the experience is better for console users. And then ideally, by the time that's old enough to really matter, we'll have the update. Ideally. Again, please don't quote me on that, but that is the plan right now. We're waiting to hear back from Navigraph about whether or not we're going to be able to make that happen.
Excellent. Yes, and for those of you that have been tracking some of the LNAV conversations, the one that we're also actively working with, and Colin and I were actually chatting about it this morning, was something that we've seen some reports on from the west coast of the U.S. Over to Hawaii, where it will sort of suddenly deviate and then back she goes. So as you encounter LNAV things related to SIDS or en route or stars, please feel free to submit a ticket on that. One, so that we can perhaps replicate it, but also that as we're building a backlog for Colin's work and the rest of the team on the development of LNAV, one of the things that we will do, and shout out to the Hot Start Discord on the list, there's these tricky or maybe even not tricky SIDS and stars that they always test LNAV performance on. And we're sort of working on our own sort of list version as well within TFDi to make sure that as development work tests, that we'll be able to make sure it's referencing the ones that we knew were problematic. Are they still problematic? So please continue to send those in as you encounter them with screenshots. And if you want to include the approach plate, that's great. It's not critical as long as it's in Navigraph.
Yeah, and I see. Yeah, and the Twitch is also kind of seeing it. It is possible, but it would be a bunch of rewrites. So yeah, it's as far as the nav data. So, and the Pacific Line deviation thing, that one won't have to wait months or years. That's a specific problem. I don't know what it is yet because I can't recreate it. But that little like horseshoe kind of hook that's happening specifically in the middle of the Pacific is something else. I don't know what's causing that, but it's either a math error. Initially, I suspected international date line, but it's happening, I think, too far east for that. So I'm not entirely sure what it is yet, but we're gonna figure it out. And that one will come out as a patch. That one won't have to wait for the months. Again, maybe not the next week or two, but like I said, we're not done forever. So maybe it's a month from now, maybe, and then a couple of other updates come out. Also, while I'm just screwing around here in the cockpit, we've changed the oxygen needle. We don't simulate oxygen because you can't put the mask on or inhale it, but the needle is at least in a location that is appropriate for a pre-flight check to pass. What else up in here? As far as stability is concerned, a couple of things. So we did find a WASM crash that could have happened with the Direct 2 page, as well as some weird behavior. We fixed that. We found a scenario, and this was reported in Discord. Again, shout out to our fantastic feedback we've gotten here in the Discord. There was a report about excessively long flight plans. Well, actually, and it came in as a Discord report and a ticket that long flight plans were causing serious FPS loss. And I tested it. I took the exact flight plan from a ticket. And now my non-frame gen FPS in that case was like 25 because I had my settings cranked up. This one flight plan took my frame rate from 25 to 8 with everything keyed in. Obviously, that's unacceptable. So we spent some time. We figured out why that exact same flight plan now takes it from 25 to 22. And I'm talking like 40 waypoints long with 6-step climbs, not a regular flight plan. So the difference is now small enough that it's negligible in most cases. You won't even notice that it changed. So that's the thing you'll see, which means everybody else will just have a slightly better performance, and those really long flight plans won't kill your performance.
That's perfect. Luke, I think you forgot a shout out with someone saying that you were the GOAT, so maybe next time be a little bit more attentive on that. But let's sort of talk about, as we sort of move on, the question that I've seen come up several times in the Discord, and it's already come up here. Colin, let's settle this feud once and for all. What is the correct way to turn on the APU?
This. Done. Just overhead panel, APU power. So the MD-11 in its weirdness has two ways to do it. the standard procedure is overhead, plunk, hit your APU button, you're done. Turn your bleed on once you're ready. Start your engines, do what you're going to do. When that's done, turn the bleed back off. The APU will shut itself off, I believe 90 seconds after the APU air demand is removed, and that's it. No other button touching. The button on the back of the overhead does command the APU on without connecting the generator or doing anything else, but it's also manual. It needs to be started and stopped manually.
Well, shout out to those rascals in Santa Barbara for doing something better than the boys in Toulouse on that one. So that was all good. Yes, there's been a lot of discussion of the start-stop button on the electrical panel on the overhead versus just what I like to call the APU power easy button, where you just click that, let her buck, and then turn on the bleeds.
Yep, yeah, let it do its thing. That's the ideal experience here. Those of you on Twitch, my dogs would like to get in on the stream apparently here. I apologize. Trying to keep that out of the mic.
So, as we kind of continue to talk about various things inside the cockpit, let's talk about some things outside of the cockpit. And Zenesis had a question on the Twitch chat about the speed of the cockpit door. Is it possible to tune that to a more normal speed? And in the galley, are there any plans to allow the light switches to be operable?
It's a positive and a negative answer. I'll give you the bad news first. No, we're probably not going to be doing anything else in the galley, but I can slow this down. Well, I saw this comment the other day, and I never really stopped to consider it, but that is exceptionally fast, isn't it? You'd knock somebody out of the way. This is I'm racing to the jetway kind of opening behavior. Yeah, we can get that. We can get that added.
Excellent.
And yes, I saw a comment as well. There was some flickering going on here in the cabin. That's been resolved. Again, we kind of just general touch-ups all over the cabin. I believe there was a change to the oxygen masks in the forward galley too. Let me. Not forward galley, sorry, the business department. Department? Long week. All right. So I'll be honest, I don't really remember what the oxygen mask looked like before. But, I mean, everything seems normal here. I'd have to review the report. I am not an expert on this particular feature.
All good.
But, I mean, everything looks normal. There's an appropriate amount of them. There is an extra in a lot of these cases in case you have a child or someone else traveling with you. So the 3/2 is accurate.
So while you're navigating here in the cabin, when we think about speed, and this was something actually that I worked with Colin on the other day, thanks to someone who submitted a ticket. Can we talk about the on departure with regards to when we've reached an acceptable acceleration height?
Oh, yes.
Let's take a look at that, Colin.
All right, let me see if I can key one in here. I don't know what flight plan I have set up, if I even have one.
You can do LAX if you want to bounce over there.
Oh, I have an excessively long flight plan I can actually use to demo that it doesn't kill the performance. That's perfect.
Perfect. There you go.
There you go. You saw me do it. No change. I don't suddenly have ridiculous input lag. All right. Let me key this in. Oh, you know what? I don't even know if this departure is going to have one of these. Well, we'll set it up and we'll see here.
So while Colin is dialing that in to the computer here, what came about was a conversation that there are some SIDs or some departures where you basically fly a runway heading up to a certain altitude. It's anywhere from 500 to 1200 above ground level, and then you are to go direct somewhere else. Maybe a left turn, direct an RNAV. Like a great example that I used was the 2.5 and 2.4 departures out of LAX. If you've ever flown the Lady J departure, direct hyper, or direct docker. For those of you that fly out of LAX, you're familiar with that. It creates a waypoint that's 640 AGL, and the distance was calculated as a few nautical miles away. And we know that the plane has a fair amount of giddy up, even fully laden, where that was not the case.
So I've actually got that shown here. So that particular one is now looking like we're less than a mile off the runway, and we're seeing that that 640 getting hit here. Now, it will still wait to cross the location that it predicted. Having that waypoint move with the airplane, it's sort of the same deal with the Magenta line thing. We know that that's not how it works. Fixing it means breaking everything else too and starting over. But we did fix where it's placed, so you're not... Because what we didn't want is it says, okay, at 640, make your turn, and you're at 2,500 feet when it gets there and makes the turn. So it'll be much, much closer now. I can't guarantee perfect, but a lot closer.
That's fantastic. So thank you for that, Colin. On the topic of, perfect, what is perfect, there's been a lot of conversations about drag. I know I've seen a couple of conversations about VNAV performance. Do you want to talk at all about the flaps and slats feedback that we've received and how that's been taken into the design process?
Yes, so the approach performance has been changed. The flaps and slats were excessively drag heavy before. They've been reduced quite a bit. It will be a little slipperier. That's a word. It'll be a little slipperier on a more slippery. I don't know. Not the point. Anyway, you get what I'm saying. Approach, final descent, and approach will be harder to slow down. But the added benefit there is that it's a little easier to not make an MD-11 shaped hole in the runway. That and another fix kind of back to back. There was an issue that would cause the altitude callouts to appear slightly late if you were coming down fast. That's been fixed also. So the more timely callouts, in addition to the less aggressive flap and slat drag, leads to a much more manageable approach and landing performance. So you will definitely see an improvement there. We've told it's quite noticeable.
That's excellent news. And just a quick shout out, because I see some conversations on the Discord chat. If you haven't had a chance to check out the changelog portion of the website, I encourage you to do that. While I don't know if it's something you need to bookmark, unless you're like myself who enjoys a good white paper or changelog reading in the morning, it is something for you to have a look at. Changelogs are thoroughly written and properly documented by the TFDi team, and everything that we've put in, taken out, modified, or tweaked, you can see is itemized in that. You'll see things like added, you'll see things like fixed with a little wrench, changed. If there's specific call-outs to either the 2020 version or the 2024 version, that will be specifically called out. And it's also helpful, you can kind of see where we were and where we've gotten to. The changelog goes back quite far, and as someone called out, the plane has come a long way since the 2020 captain's version. So that is the changelog in action.
This is not even the same plane from the collector's edition way back in the day. Not even the same plane. So I'm taking a look here at our changelog. So we've had a request to look at some of the freighter things. I'm not sure what has changed in the freighter cabin. The freighter cabin is currently lower poly because of a bug in 2024. We have a report open with Asobo. They've acknowledged it. We're just waiting on them to fix it and let us know it's time to re-enable the cabin, at which time we will, again, post an update. That won't wait months to years. As soon as they fix it, within relatively short order, we'll do so as well. So we can... I've seen a request. We made some improvements to the GE sounds, so we're gonna switch to the freighter GE here, and we'll get a preview of the new sounds, and we'll also take a look and see what's new in the cabin, if anything. Again, I got to go through and see. The changelog is quite extensive. It's lots of little details. I'm only covering the top 20% right now.
And for those of you that enjoy the Pratt & Whitney, you've probably seen some conversations in the Discord about the thrust reversers with that. That is being addressed in that update as well, Colin. Do you want to speak to that for a quick moment?
So that one, I don't know. We have, as I've said earlier, a pretty extensive testing and QA process. Between the Collector's Edition and QA, we're well into the hundreds, pushing 1,000 testers. I don't know how none of us, developers, QA, and CE combined, noticed that the reverse thrust went forward on the Pratt & Whitneys. I guess none of us ever just engaged reverse at a stop and let it roll. And that's sort of the thing. Some of these issues have popped up because they're different procedures, or that you end up in a scenario where maybe you didn't even intend to do that, and then you see it doing it wrong and it stands out. So that is fixed. The Pratt & Whitney reverse thrust actually reverses now. I can't believe I have to put that on a changelog, but it is, and it's fixed. It was a silly item when I saw it in a YouTube video as well. I think it was Swiss01 in his video did that, and I'm watching it going, how? But it's fixed. It's fixed. Let me see here. So let me get us in a ready to fly state here. So we'll get us some daytime here. We'll take a look in the freighter cabin. Get this thunderstorm off though. Actually, yeah, and the terrain radar also has the same benefits of not having the blocky cut off anymore. Those are related. I don't know why I'm scrolling this to do that, but yeah, the terrain radar behaves like you'd expect. No more blocky cut off. All right. Yes, I believe the blurry windows have been fixed, because that's not blurry. So again, this floor will be the ultra high detail one that we have in 2020 at some point, as soon as the Sobo says that we can. At the moment, they've identified it as an issue with the ray traced shadows, I believe is what they told us. But yes.
Yes.
So here we go. Yes, even in this cabin, yeah, there's no issue with the windows anymore. You know, I just saw a comment in the Twitch about can't get the coffee maker to work. Can I get a refund? If I could make that happen, I think at this point, you know, we almost added the toilet. There's actually a sound for the toilet because we were going to, just because we can. If I had a way to make you a cup of coffee from the galley, if I was bored enough, we'd do it. All right, let's take a look here at some...
The good news is Solo can get his fix with a purchase of the excellent Just Flight RJ or BAE series, which I believe does simulate that. So
does it
all
really?
excited for this. I thought I remember seeing something about that in one of their videos. I don't know. The 7200 Fokker hasn't come out yet, and that's all I'm worried about at this point. So
that is actually really cool if they do. It's been an interesting transition seeing the market kind of shift from, because now we get to the point that the cockpits are so high fidelity that we start looking at other things to add to the simulation depth. It's the reason our labs work with the little latch and everything else. It's the reason the shades go up and down and all those things. They don't, you know, they're not necessary, but they add to the immersion, and we're seeing that. So again, we have to have something to add to our next product. So and as I've said before, some of these, I don't know if lab functionality would get backported to the MD, but you know, again, some of these things we'll see in future products. So all right, so let's take a look here. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jason.
I was going to say, I'm sure if we made a poll of do you want to see the next aircraft or a coffee maker, I feel like we probably know how that poll would go. So that perhaps puts it into perspective a little bit.
Yes. All right, so here's some changes to the GE sounds. I'm going to set my brakes, and I'm going to do it from the cabin. I know I'm in a freighter, but Tyler over from Echo 19 did an amazing job. I'm very happy with the sounds in general, but they've gotten even better with this, and we've heard it's about as close to perfect as we're going to get, I think, in a sim in terms of pitch and dynamic accuracy. So here we go. I might even be a little far back, but... reverse thrust.
Oh yeah, you hear that pitch.
Get back in the cockpit and we'll do this similar test here. Ah, right. All right, we're gonna have to do this one moving. All right, so that again, very much improved there.
So, seeing we've kind of come to a complete stop on the runway here, I saw a couple of comments about this, Colin, that if you say rolling at 2 or 3 ground speed, and you hit the parking brake, it sets to 1 on the ground speed. And then if you say release the parking brake or just keep the parking brake applied, that 1 on the ground speed never rolls off. It just stays at a 1.
So yes, I think this might be a simulation we might have over-simulated. So that happens because the IRUs have essentially residual ground speed. I won't get into the super technical details of all the gyroscopes and everything, but essentially after enough time, they won't stop immediately when you stop. We simulate this, which is why you would end up realigning and doing a quick align. We've never found any reference that suggests that it would return to 0 on its own, that the residual would return to 0 on its own. It may, and I saw a report about this, or a comment about this in Twitch as well, it might be that it actually does do that, and we got it wrong and need to have it return to 0. At the moment, we said we haven't found any reference that says that. Until that came up today, no one has mentioned it. In that case, if you've done a long flight or you see residual ground speed, that's a time to turn the IRS off and back on right away. It'll zero out those values without resetting the full alignment process, and you can continue. This is the correct procedure for dealing with residual.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Yeah, I noticed some chatter on Discord about that, and someone just posted on Twitch, so thank you for that. While we're in the cockpit, does anyone else have anything that they'd like us to demonstrate or show or click on, or anything specific to any of the kind of UI, UX elements in this particular area?
While we're here waiting on this to come in, I also want to mention that I tried the Barrow set thing and realized how obnoxious that was to set. So it's still not. Let me make sure it's actually on for me. My scroll acceleration here, because once it accelerates, it should be a lot faster than it was before. Yeah, that's why it wasn't working. That'd be a little embarrassing if my new feature didn't work on stream, but I had it turned off. That'll do it. All right, so scrolling. There we go. Yeah, scrolling Barrow minimums now is significantly, I think, 5 times faster than it was before. If you're going into the thousands, it'll still take a minute. But, you know, I have one of those infinitely scrolling wheels doing that. But if I just use my regular scroll wheel, it is still accessible. It's not anywhere near as bad as it was before. You can still do it by ones if you do it slowly. But if you start just yanking it down there, you can move it a lot faster. I didn't realize how obnoxious it was until I tried to set like 2,000 or something, and yeah, I understood the complaints as soon as I did.
Yeah, everyone is a fan of that knob when you're flying into Key West, but when you go to Quito, you suddenly realize this is terrible, boss.
Yep. Yep. So that was something I was glad to have resolved, and it's an easy fix too. So that's a nice QOL thing. So, all right, let me take another quick glance, and I'll show off one more thing we did with the PFD here. I believe we also made some changes to the. Let me pull up our changelog here. I believe there's some exterior changes as well. I know there's little gaps, like, you know, there was a hole in the back. Of course, the engine's running, so the blur is kind of getting in the way. But there were some holes here and there. The stabilizer, again, hard to see from here. Let me get in the drone cam. Again, we're doing something you shouldn't be doing anyway. Like, you'd never be able to be here, but... Okay, a little too close. But the art team has been quite meticulous. There are little gaps here and there that have all been patched up. Again, no matter how long you spend staring at this thing, as us, as developers, you know, it's easy to miss something like that, so the reports from Discord helped us. There was an issue with the flap fairing alignment, specifically when the wings were flexed. That is now fixed as well. And those little details. The idea is that no matter what stage of flight, no matter how close you want to get to this, you can still see it correctly. I joke about, you know, don't get inside the wing, but I mean, you can. You can see this in here, and it's still correct. Oh, the manual gear. Let me show you guys one other thing here that we added. So this was a request. So if we look right now, you'll notice the gear doors are retracted as expected. Manual gear handle now drops the gear doors as well. Of course, once it's restored. I'm not even sure if you can stow the real one, but for the sake of not making it awful for your flight, if you accidentally deploy it, we allow it to be stowed. Alright, I think the only other main thing, there's a little startup stuff, you know, some lights come on that didn't before. The bus tie arm lights are on, they're on APU and EXT. The EDP fail lights, or the engine-driven pump fail lights will come on during pre-flight. Again, bringing it much closer to essentially one-to-one with what you're going to see on the real plane if you watch the startup videos that are out there. Let me get us in the air here. I'm gonna do the unthinkable, and I'm gonna slew because I don't know if I have enough runway left to get it in the air, and I really don't want to bury this thing in the dirt at the end of the runway live.
Don't sink.
So let's,
Don't sink. Don't sink.
let me get everything.
Don't
The
sink.
VTOL model is for 2028. You guys get early preview of that today.
Landing gear.
Oh, we're actually low enough. It was
Landing
here.
gear.
Don't sink.
Yeah.
Don't sink. Don't sink. Don't sink.
All right, I'll get it figured out here. So one of the things we changed was the VS FPA indicator.
Stabilizer
So of
motion.
course it's behind my flight director right now, but
Stabilizer motion.
get it out of the way. Get a. I'll get
Don't sink.
the AP
Don't
off
sink.
here, and we'll.
Don't sink.
Autopilot.
Don't sink. Don't sink. Don't sink.
So the FPA indicator. Let me get it down to where we are. It's so. The FPA right now is not where it's supposed to be, which is why that little green ball it's hidden behind everything. But when you're in track mode,
Altitude.
you will be able to see the track follow the airplane. I'm going to have to yank the nose up here in a second, so I'm kind of setting everything up all at once. So you can see the FPA indicator here all the way to the right. The way this works is that is showing me my track offset. And again, the track thing, you can see the track doesn't show on the PFD anymore, which is how it's supposed to be. So as I turn toward my track, this little gap here will start to move back toward the center to align with my FPA. I am legitimately colorblind, so I'm having a hard time seeing some of these things. Fun fact, that is actually part of why some of the colors on the stall feathers had a shadow initially. Didn't realize that everybody else could see them. Didn't know I was colorblind until later in my life.
Altitude.
There we go. So yeah, so as we complete this, it'll start to drift back over. You see that gap moving over. So if you're flying in FPA mode, you can follow track mode, specifically with just the FPA indicator. Now it is a little weird still the way it drifts off center and everything. It's a weird mechanism, but you can at least use that gap to see it. There we go, and then if we said, you know, FPA of 0, it's the same thing as an altitude hold essentially, and we can. This is most helpful, obviously, for approaches, not really for holding in route performance, but you could, and that's kind of the name of the game with these things now, is giving the option.
And this was once again, Colin, to my knowledge, something that got brought up on the Discord as hey, is it supposed to do this or is it supposed to look like this? There was a lot of back and forth and discussion, and
Yep.
you were basically doing live code research, development, and implementation as the conversation was occurring.
Correct. Yes, and again, like I said, it's been irreplaceable. The collector's edition, I said it, I think, during one of the other presentations. I'll say it again today. The collector's edition, the community members that submit things, our QA team, have been irreplaceable and are a huge part of why the product is as good as it is now. This plane is as close to the real one as it is, and as enjoyable to use because of all of that feedback. Let me see.
So, on the topic of the real one, I have seen a couple of comments while we've been chatting, Colin, about the VNav, the prof mode, prof performance. There's also from friend 1234. Have you seen any bugs reported based on the descent arrow on the nav map when descending on the MD-11?
I saw a question about this come up. I don't think it was a bug. It was a... I think it depends on your interpretation of the word bug in this particular context, because I think, to my knowledge, the way that arrow works is it displays on the flight plan where you're going to cross the altitude that you have selected in the FCP. So if you're at 39,000 and you start down to 3,000, or let's say you start down to 18, or 180, depending on how you want to say it. I'm American, so it's 18,000 feet. But if you're descending through 18,000 and you dial it in on the FCP, you should see on that arrow where Prof thinks you're going to be at 18,000. It is not based on your current vertical speed. It is where in the profile 18,000 feet appears. Now, where it can get a little bit less obvious is if you have a section that's holding, for example. Let's say you have a hold. It doesn't even have to be at 18,000. It can be somewhere else. But let's say you happen to stop, because the VNav path on Discord, I'm kind of doing a visual aid here. I realize that Twitch, you're not going to be able to see that. But the VNav path, or VNav, prof path, is not a diagonal line down. It's not just straight down to the airport. As you have different restrictions, as speeds change, you kind of have, sometimes it can be a stair step sort of deal. Sometimes it can be mostly down and then kind of level, flattens out to slow down for 10,000. Sometimes it has sections that are straight because the constraints and descent performance prevent it from continuing to descend. So as a result of that, you might see it show you 18,000 in that particular case way later than you think, or way earlier if there's a hold section, and it might not be immediately obvious what it's trying to tell you, but it is where 18,000 appears in the descent path. That if the plane is perfectly on path, you will be at 18,000 feet at the place that blue marker is. But again, whether or not you get there for the first time at 18,000 or you are at it when you hit that marker, that's where it's a little less obvious.
Well, and I think this also speaks to an interesting time of year, and this is actually based on a ticket that Colin and I were working on a couple of weeks ago. It's that time of year where the seasonal winds are pretty gusty at high altitudes. It is not uncommon to see 100-knot tailwinds, headwinds, crosswinds that may also potentially impact how the aircraft would perform in those situations as well.
Yes, absolutely. We had a ticket about en route turn performance, and it came in as a bug or as a nav non-compliance issue. But it was actually that I think the ground speed in the report was over 600 knots, and the turn worked out to something like a right 60 degree, left 50 degree turn in under 10 miles, which the plane, our nav pretty much predicted that and went, yeah, that's not going to happen, and skipped the en route leg, which it displays as such. You can see that it's going to do this, but it did that because of the winds. I saw a question about wind uplink as well. We don't currently have uplink, but we do import the winds from SimBrief. So if you import your flight plan, your predictions and whatnot include that. So that's especially the case. And you can enter them yourself too, and you can enter the average via the init page as well if you were so inclined. You can enter temp wind for the general flight plan here. I believe you can do it for climb and cruise as well. Maybe not on this page. That sounds like something I coded at some point, but I forget how to access it now.
Mayhem's just asked, will the manpad be getting retextured because it didn't seem to be updated when we did the new model?
Let me see. I'm not. I mean, what? Is there something wrong with it?
He's typing now. Give me a sec.
Yeah, so far from today, I have the look into the control droop on the inboard elevators, or the outboard rather, remaining neutral, and I'm slowing down the cockpit door animation.
It says if you compare the text from before, it looks the same, especially when looking at the new 24 OK tests.
Sure, that may be the case. It maybe they decided we didn't need to remodel that particular part because of what it is. I mean, I'm looking at it right now, and it's, yeah. I mean, when you're 1 foot away from it underneath, it is, you can see it, start to break down. But that's true of most things. I guess not on the rivets. I mean, they did those as a decal. That's a lot sharper. I don't know why this drone camera resets to the speed. Oh no, it is the same speed. I'm just getting even closer than I was. Trying to see how close I can get. Yeah, I mean, this is pretty sharp up close. Yeah, it is definitely a little less sharp. I will bring it up with the art team, but I can't guarantee that it will get retextured. I'm making a note here in my off-screen list.
So on the topic of looking at rivets and textures, we have not, Jan, talked about the brake temp issue. They heat up and cool down too fast. We have not spoken about that yet on this stream. Colin, would you like to speak to that?
I have no real-world reference for exactly how fast they're supposed to be. We went back and forth numerous times during development about this, and we did change it. It used to be even faster than it is. We've changed it since then. But the biggest issue is without some form of comparison, and the issue is one YouTube video one time doesn't give us enough because weight plays a factor, how much braking force was applied plays a factor, the temperature outside at the time plays a factor, the speed they landed at plays a factor. There's so many things that I don't deny that it could be wrong, but erring on the side of it being a little too quick it doesn't make an enormous difference because you can overheat them, you can pop the plugs and deflate the tires. That behavior is properly implemented. And to my knowledge, the brake temperature is not interrupting flights. It isn't so fast that you're going to accidentally cook your tires on the way to the taxiway or anything like that. Is it possible that it could use some review? Certainly. But without more detailed, granular technical reference for that, we're going to have a hard time fixing it.
Thank you for that. I hope that answers the question. Perfect. That has. I see. Mark, I apologize. I believe you asked this question earlier and I missed it. What is the point of the refuel and dipstick fuel page?
This was probably the first page we coded on the MCDU. I don't even remember what the point is. I don't even remember how to get to it. Let me see. I think it's... Where is it? It's in here somewhere. I'm going to click through every page, apparently. Oh. It only works on the ground. Okay.
I'm happy to put this, Colin, if you want to put this on your to-do here, we can follow up on the Discord.
I'm going to send it back to the ground here anyway because I don't think there's anything else to show in that particular case here. I can show off some of the new PW sounds that have been improved as well. Kind of reset. Take a quick look. The dipstick page, I believe, just has to do with direct fuel sensing reading from the sensors. I think you can potentially disable some of them as well. But again, it's been a long time since I've looked at that function, and I don't want to.
Copy that.
I don't want to get the wrong answer.
While Colin is bringing that up, Lucky had a follow-up question on his EFB. Unlimited zoom on the EFB charts. It being limited to the bounding box of a page is still small. And then the scroll bar on the charts page, the drag and scroll just doesn't work very well in VR.
Okay, I could see that in VR. The scrolling, the maximum scroll, I think would. I don't want to guarantee it, but that should be easier to fix. I'll make a note to look into it.
Okay.
Is it the max zoom? Is it? I might have to meet you in the middle there. I don't know if I can change the scrolling behavior, but I should be able to improve the zoom.
Yeah, and Mustafa on the Twitch chat also appears to have said, yeah, zooming would be, some more zoom would be cool.
Okay, yeah, I think that's something we can look into for sure. And yeah, my sim just decided it didn't even want to show me the free flight menu anymore, so I've had to restart. We can't do that. That's not our plane. We have no way to even control that. The sim is just having a moment, but we'll be back with it here in just a sec.
And just out of respect of everyone's time, Colin's in particular, because we've got some trouble tickets for him to work on after this. It is 4:15. We are certainly happy to continue the chat, but I was planning to cut him off to give him a little bit of his Friday night out and about in about 15-20 minutes here. Auto-saved functionality, possible planned within the aircraft.
Already done. The build that I have here today that got sent out to QA right before this update, or this stream rather, has autosave to the last state setting. So in the event that your WASM crashes, your sim crashes, whatever it is, I'll demo it here. I don't know if I was in the air for 30 minutes, so it'll probably put me in an on-ground state, but I should load up as it was 30 minutes ago. Let me see.
Ask and you shall receive AEM 44.
Yep. Where is I? So, all right. So it was likely before I did my. Oh, I'm on the runway. This is the sim thing. Oh, it was definitely in the air. Yep.
You know, I'm streaming on Discord.
Oh, yeah. Yep. So it was definitely in the air.
Minimum.
So this is the autosave from when I was messing around just a little while ago. In the air, gear up, flaps up. As you guys know, I was sitting on the ground for some time, and none of our default states have gear and flaps up. So this is that behavior. Now I'm going to try not to see-fit into this mountain here.
The SID departure here is to the right, boss. Just so we're cleared for depart. Yeah, there you go.
I'm flying with the WSAD keys right now because I don't have my control set up, so bear with me if this is not the greatest piloting you've ever seen.
Don't worry, chat. I've seen him fly with his controls. It doesn't get much better than this.
So, yes, agreed with that, Luke. Hey, on the topic of
Sorry.
controls, one of the things that Colin and I were talking about before this stream was controllers. I know many of you have a variety of controllers, and I've learned a lot about the TCA Airbus thrust levers in the last 3 weeks. One of the things that would be helpful, and this is kind of a courtesy FYI to your friendly support staff, when you have a control issue, something's not working, a reverser, please, if you could provide what controller you have and any control bindings you have, and then also if you are or aren't using anything like AAO, SPAD, FSUI-PC, just so that we can make sure that we're able to effectively troubleshoot. Is it a plane issue? Is it a sim issue? or is it something to do with your particular configuration? Would be extremely helpful to sort of expedite our ability to provide support on when something's not behaving properly.
Yes, and just to touch on another couple of other features I've seen here, or requests, things we've added. Another option we saw was the automatic cabin lights. I realize it's been so long now that I forgot that we even did that, but you can disable the cabin shades if you don't like them going up and down on your own. That's an option. And just to answer something I saw here in the Twitch, there was a question about whether the Jet A versus Jet A1 settings actually matter. They do. Depending on the fuel settings you have, that will determine when the fuel system starts recirculating cold fuel. So if you have, depending on where you're flying in the world, that will affect at what point that happens, and it's important to set that right, because otherwise you may end up getting fuel freeze warnings when it's not applicable. And since we're here, I guess some feedback I saw about the autosave. I have it set to 30 minutes right now, and that because it's not meant to be something that is used as a primary feature. It's a backup for when the worst happens. You know, you're 6 hours into your 8-hour flight, and your sim crashes or your WASM crashes, whatever. Of course, we've tried to fix as many of the WASM crashes that we are responsible for as possible, but it could happen. So the reason I bring this up is what is the preferred time for everybody? Because 30 minutes, it happens so infrequently, you'll never notice it. But I can make it faster if that's not preferred. I see 10 to 15 here in the chat in Twitch. I mean, Luke and Jason, feel free to weigh in here as well.
Yeah, I would say 15 seems a reasonable middle ground. I know just from my own experience, having spent a ton of time like in the toeless aircraft, I think the default was like 5 minutes.
Okay.
That seems a little overly excessive.
Yeah.
So how about 15, Colin?
I can do that. I said I pretty much picked
Can it-
30 out of a hat, so.
Can it be user configurable?
It could be, but I don't think at this moment that's worth the effort, because it shouldn't be getting used. Again, this is only for if something else has gone catastrophically wrong. It's there just to avoid wasting user time. So I think at most 15 minutes. And again, the save may not be 15 minutes old. It might have just happened. But the maximum amount of time that could be lost for a full sim crash or WASM crash is 15 minutes.
Okay. So I think the takeaway from that is, in a perfect world, you would allow us to configure it, but a middle ground for something that you can deploy fairly quickly without a lot of R&D and integration would be 15 minutes.
Correct. Yeah, I'll change it for the next update. You've got a couple of things to tweak based on today's feedback, so that'll get added to the list. Like I said, I'm going to look into that elevator thing. I'm going to look into the EFB zooming. I'll slow down the cockpit door animation. I'm going to change the autosave, and I will ask the art team about the manpads texture. If that's something that they can do with little effort, we'll do it. But I will admit it's a low priority item. That may not be something that makes it into the update in a couple of days. The other 4 items I will look into before this update.
All right, so I have 2 more questions, and any progress on pause at top of descent lockup? Mayhem is aware of past findings, but wanted to just put it top of mind for you, Colin.
Yeah, so we still have absolutely no idea what is causing that. The other day, I did a 14-hour monster of a flight with my wife, and we paused, I think, at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, and I landed at probably 7 or 8, and it unpaused instantly with no issue. And that's been pretty consistently the experience for me. I experienced this hang after the pause at top of descent one single time my entire time developing this airplane. I don't deny that it does happen, but without being able to recreate it in a somewhat reliable manner, not only can I not really debug what the problem is, but I also can't adequately test if we fixed it. Because if it happens randomly, I might not fix it, make a change, it doesn't happen for a while, we think it's fixed, and then it happens again. So it's one of those things where it's very challenging for us to do that, and as a result, we haven't spent an enormous amount of effort on it. If we make progress, so we start to see something that says, oh, hey, this is reliably causing this, whether that be simulator settings or a certain amount of time paused or a certain length of flight, because we've tried all these. I've done numerous tests of actual flights, not in debug mode, using smart card, other tools. I've used one on the EFB. Doesn't seem to matter. I've never had this issue except that one time. I did it again the next day with the debugger attached, and it didn't do it. So again, if we're able to narrow it down, some of those conditions to things that make it happen, I'll be happy to take a look. But other than that, it's unlikely to be something we spend an enormous amount of time on, just for the sake of respecting and prioritizing developer time.
And my ask to any of you when you're reporting this, certainly as much information as you believe you can give us on how we can get the necessary state triage, error, recording information in front of Colin. While it's incredibly frustrating for you when it happens, and we all acknowledge that, hearing about it, that it happened last weekend when you were flying, it's difficult for us to do actionable R&D on that.
Correct. It doesn't mean we don't care. When I respond like that, some of the things here in Discord I've closed out as no action taken, because I look at it, and as much as I feel for you that you had an issue, now this particular bug, if you leave it alone, it'll eventually fix itself, is what I've heard. So don't worry and kill your sim immediately. It might be a couple of minutes, I've heard, but eventually it catches up and you can continue your flight. Now, I suppose that combined with the autosave feature makes it less severe. Worst case, if it does happen, you can get back to where you need to be. But again, that's already assuming something's gone wrong. If we're able to figure it out, we will fix it. And again, that's one of those things that wouldn't wait months for a patch. If we get to the bottom of that one, we'll patch it quickly and get it solved. And if you're someone that is having this issue and you can consistently say, oh, if I do this route, it happens to me every time for this amount of time, give us that route and let us try. Because as soon as we can reliably create it, we can most either fix it or report it to a SOBO with the proper steps for them to fix it, whichever the case is.
Yes. All right, 2 more questions. The Morse code sound missing when doing ILS approaches.
I don't think it's missing. I think it was a byproduct of another bug that we had, and it was that the volume knobs were inverted. So if you turned it all the way up, you would turn it off. I have corrected that in this version. So I would say if any of our QA can weigh in, actually, they would probably be better. I have had that disabled since the FSX days on my planes. So I have not heard that. But I know what you're talking about, the Morse beep. We have it. I know it's like the code to allow it to function is there. I remember talking with Pedro about this way in the early days on the radios. So it should be there. I can take a peek at the code as well, though. I'll add that to my list to review.
Perfect.
And the result may be that I take no action because it's already fixed, but I will put it on my list to make sure. And yeah, to answer the question of how it got inverted, I believe at one point prior, because we changed the behavior here of the lighting on these panels as well. The geometry for all these was improved, and I think at one point the animation was reversed, so we had to make the code essentially flip the number and then do the math for the volume. That got fixed at some point on the art side, so the animation is now coherent in the way you'd expect it to be, but the code was now backward. So that, and it was one of those things that once it worked, we didn't test it again because it already worked, and then it just got left that way, and now of course it's been fixed. But
if you're near a VOR, if you tune that, it should work through the Morse code.
oh, I am. I'm 47 miles from PJM. All right, let me. I don't remember the last time I used VOR mode on the radio. Let me see if this actually works. I'm gonna test a feature I haven't touched in years right now. What is it? 282. Let's do 282. I need to do /282.
Killing said, does the aircraft actually tune VORs?
Yes. in the meantime, let's see. Should be
I
VOR1.
flew a VOR coupled departure. I tracked outbound on a VOR radial the other day on a ticket. It took me a minute to figure out how to do it. Not gonna lie, I had to watch an 11-year-old YouTube video. I was like, wait, where do I get VOR armed here?
Let me actually verify, because now that I'm thinking about it, it might not actually. Because I know we ended up doing some custom stuff with the radios, specifically to help with the ability to tune multiple and have like ADF and VOR co-function and whatnot. So it is possible. I'm opening up the SimBar watch right now to see if it does tune. But I'll bring it. Gonna do it. I mean, it is a dev stream after all.
It is.
Let's
While
see.
you're doing that, Samus Racer has asked, is the mouse cursor flickering on the EFB fixed?
No, we don't even know what it is. The art team has moved the colliders. They've checked the material settings. We played around with a bunch of things, and so far we've been unable to figure out what the problem is. I have one more idea. I'm gonna have them try, but if that doesn't do it, then it's something we're gonna have to report to Asobo.
Now we've also had Astra ask, are there any plans to add a kind of click spot for noise cancelling headphones? Or a simulation noise cancelling headphones?
It was discussed. It ended up being one of those things that's kind of down the road for a future update, I think. It's something I'd be interested in doing. I'm definitely interested in looking into it, and I think Tyler is as well when I have talked to him about this. But again, that's something I would probably expect to see in a QOL, like general purpose update somewhere down the road. Yes, if you're having issues with Chase Plane eating your mouse still, they might have fixed that. We've seen that report frequency slow down, but the version that we have now also has kind of a fail-safe that if that happens, it'll kick you out of whatever input box you got stuck in.
Lucky 38 had a follow-up question on aircraft states. Is
Sure.
it possible to allow for some sort of pre-designed, curated states, like a brand new worn, very worn? Kind of help sort of give you a maintenance scenario. Helps on the Mad Dog to better understand the age of the aircraft. So kind of this aircraft has 1,200 hours and it's got 60% worn this, 80% worn that, for example. Sort of some curated states for learning.
We could potentially. It does. That data does exist. Again, not something we'd see right now, but it does exist. So that could be possible. Again, that's something I'd say open up something in the Discord here so we can't get lost, so we can come back to it. Okay, I am not getting the VOR Morse, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't work. It means that I'm not getting it now. But I do see it tuned, so I'm leaning toward it may not work.
So Enrico asked, and I apologize, Enrico, if you also asked on Twitch and I didn't get to you yet. Scullin, you've obviously spent a lot of time in this aircraft, both
Yes.
as a pilot and as a developer. You know it kind of inside and out. And when you fly it on your free time, whatever that is for you, do you do it more casually, or are you by the book, realistic checklist to the line?
Oh, I am definitely not the second kind. I joke about this all the time. I pretty much only fly the house paint because in my mind it's my plane, so it feels realistic. I've occasionally done some KLM flights that are real routes, but I typically tend to kind of throw a pin at the wall and see what random locations I can get. Now, when I say I do fly it realistically, and that I start cold and dark, start the systems up properly, run the tests, do the setup the way you would. I have realistic alignment time, like those sorts of things. But I do not run the checklist. Although having worked on it for as long as I have almost every procedure memorized because I know exactly what the code is looking for. So the checklists are more of a reminder than they are a necessity. But I do miss things occasionally. But no, I would definitely say I'm more of a let's just get in and do it to the extent that that's possible on an airliner. You know, I don't spawn on the runway and full throttle it, but I've definitely taken this plane to a couple of airports it has no business being in. Several of which I don't think I could take off from.
Gotcha. So he's not bringing donuts to the simulated loadmaster on the docks at the 4 a.m. call for departure.
You know what? Let's look at this volume thing. Oh yeah, there we go. We're tracking VOR1 now too. So this does work. Nice. I haven't tested this in a long time. I remember putting a great deal of effort into doing this VOR capture behavior, but it does work. Somebody asked us recently, we had a ticket, I believe, come in about, do we support VOR to VOR flying? And here we are. I'm using, let me actually switch here. So we're using only VOR nav. I'm going to turn that one off. And we're using the autopilot to track it in. We should turn here in a second. While I wait for that, I'm going to look into the radios here. Well, won't spend too much time on this, but I do really want to see. This is ADF. Where's my volumes? 'Cause it might be that the volume is just 0. That's also possible because I'm not seeing a volume function at all in here. Here we go. Set receiver volume, audio panel.
If you're ever wondering what it looks like underneath the pixels on your screen, this is it.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks like, Colin, the people on Twitch can see it. I don't know if they can see it on Discord.
Oh, yep. Oh no, they cannot. I don't have a way to fix that other than let me change my actual stream source here. Well, either way, again, we're the VOR tracking it's heading toward the VOR. So until I get to that radial, it's just gonna fly straight. So we can come back to that in a minute. Let me change the audio or the stream source here on Discord.
Sorry, just want to make sure that you all can see appropriately what Colin is referring to.
Oh yeah. Also, I saw a question about alternate fuel. You can only manually change your alternate fuel if you zero out the alternate airport, which is done by entering a literal 0 into the ALTN route box on left 2, I believe. All right, so let's see here. I'm not going to spend all day on this, but I am not in debug mode right now, so I cannot attach the debugger and actually see what the problem is, but I'm just trying to see. Maybe we have an event wrong. Volume. Okay. Nav 1. Nav 2. So I think, yeah, it gets the highest of our volumes. Let's see. Actually, an easy way to tell here. Let's just set nav1 volume and number. Was that NM3? I don't even know what unit that is. I'm not that kind of programmer. Okay, so nav1 volume is 100%. ADF1 volume. Oh man, isn't that fun? Percent. There we go. That's at 60%. Is that right? Do I have it about halfway through on the ADF? Yes. Okay, so that tells me it is correctly responding. So it's set. It's set. It's enabled. Audio panel volume in general is 100%. Okay, yep. I mean, that's not a tech hand, so that's not an issue. Yes, I mean, it's set. Let's see. Let's go nav.
Killian asked, are you setting the actual nav frequency?
Yeah, nav active frequency is the VOR frequency right now.
Enrico asks,
Nav
how do you
sound.
know the logic of the aircraft systems? Is the documentation that cover in depth, or did we get access to the original source code?
We have definitely not had access to the original source code. So people tend to send us reference. We have pilots that provide a lot of input and a lot of hands-on experience. We've had some mechanics on the team. We've been lucky to have kind of a look behind the glass, so to speak, from the mechanics. So that's been something really helpful. But in a lot of cases, it's sort of, we take what the pilots tell us, what we can find on YouTube and pictures, the manuals reference that we were sent, and then sort of our own knowledge of airplanes and kind of work out. Between all those things, you can kind of interpolate what the right answer is. And when you get it right, you find that other things tend to work properly, naturally. So for the failures, for example, if we try to figure out, oh, well, what does this system depend on? Well, that manual, or that section of the manual may not explain that. But the subsection about its dependent system later may, in passing, mention off when other system is off. And as you go to work on it later, and you read that, you go, oh, this happens already. I don't even have to code this. We must have gotten the other system right. Or the opposite happens. You go, oh, that should already be done, and it isn't. So now we need to fix this. And now those of you here on Twitch, you can see me here. I'm currently looking at the event IDs for Flight Simulator 2024, trying to figure out if I have a sound option. I see sound on, but I only see marker sound. Yeah, no, so it looks like we're setting all of the things that we can set for this marker volume thing, and it's just not happening. So why, I'm not entirely sure, but here we go. We're approaching my VOR track now. Again, it's taking its sweet time because I came in at a weird angle, but
yeah, it was quite the experience when I was trying to figure out how this worked after that ticket came in.
Yeah. They're switching back to this. We're getting just about ready to intercept. What did I say? 282. We're getting just about ready to get over there.
So I'm gonna put you on the spot.
Oh man! All right, let's do it.
In front of everyone. Are you ready to talk about anything else that's not the MD-11?
No, and I know that's not the answer everybody wants. We have a couple of things in progress, I will say. We're looking at some changes to smart cars. I know it's not necessarily what this stream is about, but it is something that we developed that's important to us. We are working on, there is airplane work happening, and we have our eyes set on more than one plane in the next 3 to 5 years. The development team that we've built, the technology that we've been able to develop, and the hurdles we've been able to overcome allow us to work a lot faster than we have previously. If we were to start something from scratch today, it would be half the coding time that the MD-11 was. So that is good news. We spent a long time developing coding standards, technology, testing practices, and what have you to make this sort of stuff easier. Now, of course, we did make the 717 for P3D. We still allow 717 V1 downloads on our website. So that's something that could be considered.
You have been flying out to Hawaii a lot lately. I don't know if that's for research purposes or not, but hey, you never know, right?
But jokes aside, we have a couple of things. I think some may not surprise you. I think some might. We do have a lot of announcements over the next months to year and a half. Again, there's all of my cryptic nature will make sense when we get to announce some of the things, but it will not today. It's gonna sound like I'm just building hype for no reason. But we have a lot of really cool stuff in the works, I think, here. And I'm watching it do this VOR course thing now, and I'm so happy this works. There it goes. It's spinning the needle around. Nice. Exactly as designed. Cool. So we got to see that work.
We almost violated Steve Jobs' rule number 1, never do a live demo, so we lucked out.
Oh, I believe firmly in live demos. I've said it before with software. No software is ever perfect. The difference between us and a lot of others is that we don't pretend to be. I'm going to break stuff. I'm going to do stuff wrong. Demos are not always going to work. That's the nature of it. And I think that sort of being that way is what has, I think, helped some people feel comfortable to come in and share some of these things with us because they know we're going to listen. I love live demos, even when they're, as long as the product is more or less ready, and that's on us. You know, if this is a finished product, so this, if anything did go wrong, should be really minor. But in development stuff, it'll break. I know it will. Our earlier dev streams, we kind of just glanced right over like massive issues during the process. That's how it goes.
Well, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I think we're going to wrap it up unless there's anything else. Colin, Luke, you'd like to cover anything else from the audience that you'd like to have us talk about or focus on or highlight at this time?
So I've seen 2 questions. First one is, would you ever consider a collector's edition or similar again?
That was actually one I was about to address myself, so it's perfect. So with that, I would say yes. I would absolutely consider it again, and here's the reason. The collector's edition, while unpopular for the users that maybe didn't end up with the ER, it allowed an opportunity for people that really had a deep interest in the product to invest early and help us. And I can't stress this enough. The collector's edition was an investment. These customers bought the promise of a plane at some point in the future and hoped that we would get it right. And I'd like to think that we've more than delivered on that promise at this point. But it was a gamble for them nonetheless, as far as many of them. We knew it wouldn't be a gamble, but to them, they don't know us necessarily. They have nothing other than we're going to make a plane. And the ER and us doing some of those extra things was the reward for that. However, the reason that works so well is those of you that knew us in the 717 days, we had the community opt-in beta, which ended up being around the same amount of people that the CE was. That volume of users seems to be just the right sweet spot to be large enough to get a good sample size and really know if something works, but small enough to be manageable that if something goes wrong, it doesn't ruin everybody's day and end up all over the news articles and become this major issue. And you can sort of preface the purchase of the collector's edition with, hey, this is not going to be a regular off-the-shelf, buy it, use it, and it's perfectly smooth all the time experience. It might be a little rough around the edges. It might be that we're expecting feedback from you because the people that signed up for it wanted that. They wanted to be part of that. So, and I'm giving all of this just justification because I know it wasn't the most popular choice for people because they felt left out. And our goal was never to try to force people to spend extra money because of FOMO or anything like that. We actually actively encouraged people not to do the pre-sale or the collector's edition if they weren't interested. I would rather you wait until you're comfortable. But that CE group was irreplaceable. Not only did we kind of create a cool community, we've met a lot of people that end up contributing a lot in terms of knowledge, reference, or just became people that we were happy to see in our community. But it also created an environment where we got to be so hands-on and learn and improve so much, more than I've been doing this for a long time, and I've never had a more productive feedback environment than we did with the CE. Even some of our QA members came from CE as well. Killian is here in our chat, and he's contributed a lot. I'm going to say his name wrong, I'm sure, but his username is Juna. Same deal. They both came from CE, and they become irreplaceable members of our QA team. So I would absolutely consider doing it again. Whatever we offer as the exclusivity on whatever the plane we end up working on, I almost said it accidentally in the process of describing this, so that wouldn't have been very helpful. But while we're working on the next planes, I think that we are going to consider what can we add that doesn't take away if you don't have. It's like the ER and the MD-11 wasn't very common. Most routes didn't depend on it because there weren't that many of them. So it's one of those things where if you don't have it, you're not unable to enjoy the product. You're not losing out on major features. Like, you know, we wouldn't take away an engine option or something like that and make it only CE, because that's ridiculous. That's not fair. That takes away from the overall experience. So we absolutely would do it. We would do it, but we would make sure that we find something that's appropriate to be withheld, so to speak, or given as an extra to those probably the 1,000 is a good number again, to make sure that it's fair for everybody. So again, a long way of saying yes, we would, but that's my whole reasoning as to why and how we would do it to make sure it's responsible and fair to those involved.
Luke, was there another one that you said you had? You had two?
Yeah, I've lost it. It was. Let me have a scroll and find it. It was. Did the DIRCM pod have a CIU, or is that unknown? If so, and it's not implemented, why don't we have EVS?
Look, I'm an
Your
acronyms
face
guy,
was
man.
My face when I read that.
I'm an acronyms guy, and even I'm looking at that going, is that English? Oh, the man pass. No, so the man passing is purely visual. We're not getting into the anything deeper. Yeah, there's my puppies. My puppies feel very passionate about that as well, apparently. So the no, the man-pad system is there to simulate the visual element of that, because it is, and it's one of those little quirky. I hesitate to call it fun because of the nature of what it is, but it's one of those quirky things that you wouldn't really expect to see. But we also don't go too deep into that kind of simulation because it sort of borders on stuff that we really don't want to bring into flight simulation too much. And then EVS, I'm assuming you mean like the enhanced vision. Am I? Is that what that is? Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, that's, and and then yes, Mayhem also said it. Something like that we have next to zero reference for. It's the same thing. I think with some of the MD-11s had a HUD too. I think it was just FedEx that did the HUD. And again, I think maybe a manual exists somewhere for it, but it was so specific, and it's so hard to get reference for them. Oh, it is the HUD. The EVS is the HUD. Okay, cool. So I do know what you're talking about. Then I just didn't know it by that name. Okay, so yeah, then again, there's just not an enormous amount of reference, and the amount of planes that it would have realistically been on is very low. The effort is very high to do it correctly. HUDs are not easy to implement. At least they didn't used to be. I'm sure some of the process has changed with 2020, but in 2024. But at least back in the old P3D days, they were notoriously challenging to get right.
We can live vicariously through a Citation Max longitude EVS landing into Gatwick for all your EVS needs on YouTube for the time being.
Yeah, that might have to be your fix for EVS for the moment.
That'll be how you scratch that itch for the time being.
But yeah, and I just want to address too over here, anybody whose question we did not get to live, it isn't because we don't want to, but I also, I appreciate everybody coming to hang out with us, but I don't want to keep everybody here all night. Feel free to come join us in our Discord. It is tfdidesign.com/chat if you're joining us here on Twitch. Feel free to come hang out with us there and ask questions. We're all pretty active. Somebody commented recently that I never sleep. It's not entirely true, but if you do want to come get in touch with us, we're here. The developers are in here, and we'll do our best to interact with you. I'm scrolling through my changes one more time, seeing if I see anything that I didn't mention that will be important. This change log, like I said, is like 100 items long, so I've covered a lot of the immediately noticeable stuff, but there's other small things you'll find as you use it that make it feel more comfortable and a little more refined.
And please, if you had a question that we didn't get to, I acknowledge we didn't get to every single one of them. Please feel free to ask in Discord if you feel it's appropriate for a support ticket, as the product is not behaving as you would expect. Please do not hesitate to reach out and open a support ticket, and we'll take a look and follow up with that. Your feedback and outward support of this product via YouTube, Twitch, Discord, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, whatever it is that you prefer, has been overwhelming for Colin. We've talked about it extensively, the team, and it's kind of, I think everyone's still on a high from the 12th.
Yes.
And we still want to ride that momentum into whatever comes next. And we want to have that experience with you on everything that we release. So your feedback is vital to ensure that we're always hitting the spot and making you, at the end of the day, the most important part of this company, the customer, happy with everything that we do.
Yeah, it's been a very humbling experience. We've seen some overwhelmingly positive things said about the product in general and about the flying experience, and I am so humbled to see it. I know the team they've put in an enormous amount of work. We all have, and to see that it finally landed and that the experience for everybody out there is exactly the experience we wanted you to have feels really nice. We've learned a lot from this. Again, I can tell you, even working on the next planes already, there's things we've learned from the MD that will make the next planes better on day one than the MD was. And there's ways that, again, we're going to continue to learn and grow, and it's been an amazing experience. So thank you all for joining us here today on this relatively impromptu stream. There's been a lot of great interaction, and I appreciate you hanging out with us for a very, very technical, very granular deep dive into a bunch of these tweaks, and I'm glad we got to get the chance to get these things answered. I will close out with some information about Marketplace and Xbox quickly because it did come up. Marketplace, this update is what we were waiting on for Marketplace. We wanted to kind of get this day one stuff. We don't control, as has been discussed, we do not control the distribution on Marketplace. That is entirely up to Microsoft. When it gets approved, how it gets approved, when it goes out, that's nothing to do with us. So other than us sending them a zip file, that's how it's submitted, we say, hey, here's the content, that's on them. So we are going to submit that once this 1.1.12 or 13, probably end up being 13 or 14 because of the changes today, but early next week, ideally, when this comes out to the public. It'll also get sent to Marketplace for PC. Now, Xbox should not be an enormous amount of work. The way it's designed, as of everything we've been able to test and prepare for, we do have to reduce some text resolutions, cut a couple things out because it is a console and it does not have some of the same headroom that we have on PC. But the process of doing that should not be very long. We've secured Ozzy an Xbox Series S, I believe, so we can test on the minimum supported hardware, make sure that it's at least, usable, if not enjoyable. And once we are happy with that, that gets sent, and then it's the same process. Microsoft has to approve it. So we're looking. I wouldn't count on the Xbox within the next 2 weeks. It will likely end up being longer than that. But the Marketplace release, we will submit, like I said, as soon as this next update comes out, and then it's up to them.
That's a great question to end on. We're excited to get it in the hands of everyone, 2020, 2024 users, Xbox, PC, you name it.
The idea of firing up your Xbox in your living room and jumping in the MD-11 to do a long haul is such a crazy concept to me. When I started coding flight simulator software years and years ago, the idea of that being on somebody's living room television would have been unimaginable on a console. So that's going to be a really cool experience, and I'm looking forward to getting to welcome the Xbox and eventually, hopefully, PlayStation pilots into the fold and letting them experience all the weirdness that is the MD-11. So,
Stabilizer motion on Xbox Live Chat. Never thought I'd hear it. Never thought I'd hear it.
Yeah, it probably would get picked up too. So on that note, folks, I think we've covered everything. Jason, is there anything support related you want to cover before we call it a day?
No, I would just ask that as we work through kind of, if you have a particular issue, again, do not hesitate to submit a ticket, but also understand that if your issue, your particular problem is unique in nature, and we're not able to diagnose it quickly, we'll typically tell you it's unique in nature, we may need a couple of extra days to figure it out. Our goal is to get you in the air ASAP. We don't want you grounded for a single second longer than you have to be for whatever issue you're having. But oftentimes for those sticky tickets, I do have to get time with Colin, and I like to be respectful of his downtime, and we will do our absolute best to get you operational ASAP. But again, please create a ticket, reach out to us if you need anything. Do not suffer in silence. We're here to help. Fun IT fact: after 25 years in the IT support business, only 20% of people with a problem actually report the problem to a developer or programmer for assistance with support. So do you want to be that 20% or do you want to be that 80%? So please feel free to reach out. We're here to help. We're happy to help. And we want to make sure that you're delighted with this product for years to come.
And I think that's a perfect way to end it. So thank you everybody for joining us here on Twitch and on Discord. It's been a pleasure talking with you all, and we will be in touch as things progress. And have a great weekend, everybody.
Bye bye.
See you later.